Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. As the debate over reservations for the OBCs divides the country, we ask, what are the government's real intentions? That's the critical question that I shall put today in an exclusive interview to the Minister for Human Resource Development, Arjun Singh. Minister, most people would accept that steps are necessary to help the OBCs gain greater access to higher education. The real question is, why do you believe reservations is the best way of doing this?
Well, I wouldn't like to say much more on this because, you see, these are decisions that are taken by not individuals alone. And in this case, the entire parliament of this country, almost with rare unanimity, has decided to take this decision.
Except Parliament is not infallible. In the emergency when it amended the Constitution, it was clearly wrong. It had to reverse its own amendments. So the question arises, why does Parliament believe reservations is the right way of helping the OBCs?
Well, you may call it, the Parliament is certainly, nobody is infallible, but Parliament is supreme. And the supremacy of Parliament, at least I as a member of Parliament, cannot but accept.
No doubt Parliament is supreme, but the constitutional amendment that gives you your authority is actually an enabling amendment. It's not a compulsory requirement. And secondly, the language of the amendment doesn't talk about reservations. The language talks about any provision by law for advancement of socially and educationally backward classes. So you could have chosen anything other than reservations. Why reservations?
Well, because as I said, that was the will and desire of Parliament.
And so do you personally also, as Minister of Human Resource Development, believe that reservations is the right and proper way to help the OBCs?
Certainly that is one of the most important ways to do it.
The right way?
Also the right way.
In which case, let's ask a few basic questions. We're talking about reservations for the OBCs in particular. Do you know what percentage of the Indian population is OBC? Mandal puts it at 52%. The National Sample Survey at 32%, the National Family and Health Survey at 29.8%. Which is the correct figure?
Well, I think that should be decided by people who are more knowledgeable. But the point is that the OBCs form a fairly sizable percentage of our population.
No doubt, but the reason why it's important to know what percentage they form is that if you're going to have reservations for them, then you must know what percentage of the population they are. Otherwise, you don't know whether they are already adequately catered in higher education or not.
Well, that is obvious they are not.
Why is it obvious?
Obvious because that is something which we all see.
Except for the fact that the NSSO, which is a government-appointed body, has actually in its research in 1999, which is the most latest research, shown that 23.5% of all university seats are already with the OBCs. And that is just 8.5% less than what the NSSO believes is the OBC share of the population. So for a difference of 8%, would reservations be the right way of making up the difference?
Well, you see, I wouldn't like to go behind all this because, as I said, Parliament has taken a view and Parliament has taken a decision. As a servant of Parliament, I can only implement.
Absolutely. Parliament has taken a view, I grant it. But what people question is the simple fact, is there a need for reservations? If you don't know what percentage of the country is OBC, and if furthermore the NSSO is correct in pointing out that already 23.5% of college seats are with the OBC, then you don't have a case in terms of need.
College seats? I don't know.
College seats, 23.5% of college seats, according to the NSSO, which is a government-appointed body, are already with OBC.
What do you mean by college seats?
University seats. Seats of higher education.
Well, I don't know. I have not come across that.
So when critics say to you that you don't have a case for reservation in terms of need, what do you say to them?
Well, I've said what I had to say, and the point is that that is not an issue now for us to debate.
You mean the chapter is closed?
The decision has been taken.
Regardless of whether there is a need or not, the decision is taken and it's a closed chapter.
Well, so far as I can see, it is a closed chapter, and that is why I have to implement what our Parliament has
Minister,
decided.
it's not just in terms of need that your critics question the decision to have reservations for OBCs in higher education. More importantly, they question whether reservations themselves are efficacious and can work. For example, a study done by the IITs themselves shows that 50% of IIT seats for the SCs and STs remain vacant, and of the remaining 50%, 25% are candidates who even after 6 years fail to get their degrees. So clearly, in their case, reservations aren't working.
Well, I will only say one thing, that on this issue, it would be not correct to go by all these figures that are being paraded.
You mean the IIT figures themselves could be dubious?
Not dubious, but I think that is not the last word.
All right, maybe the IIT may not be the last word. Let me then quote you the report of the Parliamentary Committee on the Welfare for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes. That's a parliamentary body. It says that looking at Delhi University, between 1995 and 2000, just half the seats for undergraduates at the scheduled caste level and just 1/3 of the seats for undergraduates at the scheduled tribe level were filled. All the others went empty, unfilled. So again, even in Delhi University, reservations aren't working.
Well, if they are not working, it does not mean that for that reason we don't need them. There must be some other reason why they are not working, and that can be certainly probed and examined. But to say that for this reason no reservation need to be done.
50 years after reservations were made, statistics show, according to the Hindustan Times, that overall in India only 16% of the places in higher education are occupied by SCs and STs. The quota is 22.5, which means that only 2/3 of the quota is occupied. 1/3 is going waste. It's being denied to other people.
As I said, the kind of figures that have been brought out, in my perception, do not reflect the realities. Realities are something much more, and of course, there is an element of prejudice also.
But these are figures that come from a parliamentary committee. It can't be prejudiced.
No,
They are your own bodies.
parliamentary committee has given the figures, but as to why they has not happened, that is another.
I put it to you that you don't have a case for reservations in terms of need. You don't have a case for reservations in terms of their efficacy. Why then are you insisting on extending them to the OBCs?
I don't want to use that word, but I think your argument is basically fallacious.
But it's based on all the facts available in the public domain.
Those are facts which I said need to be gone into with more care, and what lies behind those facts, why this has not happened, that also is a fact.
All right, let's approach the issue of reservations differently in that case. Reservations means that a lesser qualified candidate gets preference over a more qualified candidate solely because in this case he or she happens to be OBC. In other words, the upper castes are penalized for being upper caste.
No, nobody is penalized, and that is a factor which we are trying to address, and I think the Prime Minister will be talking to all the political parties and will be putting forward a formula which will see that nobody is penalized.
I want very much to talk about that formula.
No,
but
but I
before
can't.
we come to talk about how you're going to address concerns, let me point one other corollary. Reservations also gives preference and favor to caste over merit. Is that acceptable in a modern society?
The perceptions of a modern society, I don't think fit India entirely.
You mean India is not a modern society, therefore can't claim to be treated as one?
It is a modern society, emerging as a modern society, but the modern society's parameters do not apply to a large section of the people in this country.
Let me quote Jawaharlal Nehru, a man who you personally admire enormously, who on the 27th of June 1961 wrote to the chief ministers of the day as follows: I dislike any kind of reservations. If we go in for reservations on communal and caste basis, we will swamp the bright and able people and remain second-rate or third-rate. The moment we encourage the second-rate, we are lost. And then he adds pointedly, this way lies not only folly, but disaster. What do you say to Jawaharlal Nehru today?
Well, Jawaharlal Nehru was a great man in his own right, and not only I, but everyone in India except a few.
But you're just about to ignore his advice.
No. Are you aware that it is Jawaharlal Nehru who introduced the first